We've already talked about the proactive planning that goes into place so that we have a way to deal with negative incidents when they occur. That really falls in the form of things like disaster recovery plans, for example, for how to quickly bring up a failed server. And that is all under the more general umbrella of business continuity plans, or BCPs. But when we get to these step-by-step procedures, what exactly do we do to respond to a failed server or a malware outbreak? That's an incident response plan. And that's what we're going to take a look at, an IRP. Now, the incident response plan, of course, is only enacted when we are sure there is an incident that applies to that plan. So when we have an indicator of compromise, an IOC, as in a sensor on the network, an IDS sensor, an intrusion detection sensor that says, hey, I think that we've got an attack underway because we have a lot of traffic that's flooding a website, thus blocking legitimate traffic. And then if we're sure that that is a true positive, it's correct, it identified an attack and it really is an attack that's occurring, the incident response plan can be enacted. Now, examples of suspicious activity that could trigger either physical people, human beings, to respond, or it could be an automated response. Examples of what might trigger that would be excessive inbound or outbound traffic to unknown hosts, maybe newly detected devices on the network that normally shouldn't be there. If we're a Windows shop, why are there Linux devices on the network when they weren't deployed by the IT department? Or, of course, as we said, alerts that come in from intrusion detection and prevention systems. So the IRP, the Incident Response Plan, is a document that gets crafted so that we can prepare ahead of time for how we will respond. We want to minimize how long it takes to respond to an incident, and then, of course, get systems back up and running, recover data, or whatever the case is. So we are responding to threats with our IRP. We have to be able to detect that it actually occurred, then we need to contain it and eradicate the problem, such as cleansing machines from infections. And then we might even have a contact list. For example, the incident response plan might be structured such that if a ransomware incident occurs, we have pre-planned that the chief security officer must be called immediately, even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's a big deal. We can have a contact list. We can also have steps on how to escalate if we can't contain the incident. And maybe that's where, if we've outsourced some cybersecurity consulting firm, that we can escalate it to them to deal with the problem if we can't handle it in-house. All of these components are part of an incident response plan. Now, the life cycle for this plan begins with a periodic review. What are the threats? What are the assets? What's the likelihood? Sounds a lot like risk management, doesn't it? It's because it is. It feeds into the crafting of incident response plans. We need to assign roles. Who is responsible for responding if all of a sudden we have a true positive that, yeah, there's a ransomware outbreak on this subnet? Who's supposed to deal with that first and head up that situation? So roles and responsibilities. In order for people to fulfill their roles properly with incident response, if it's people that respond, then they need to have regular training in security and the products that are being used. Not only that, there should be periodic drills to test the response time based on the incident response plan. So we need to make sure then that the response plan is updated periodically from lessons learned. That means that if an incident actually occurred, we had a ransomware malware outbreak, we put our incident response plan into action, and it took way too long to contain and eradicate that situation. Why did it take so long? Where are the flaws? Because we're going to update that incident response plan so that the next time it's much quicker. So there's always something to be learned by that. So once the planning has taken place, the actual process when you enact the incident response plan means that we are identifying incidents, containing them, eradicating the situation, such as a malware outbreak, recovering, which could involve recovering systems that have failed, and then taking those lessons learned to make sure that when this happens again, we have a better way to respond. Now remember that this doesn't have to be human beings that are responding to these security incidents. It could be an automated response based on an intrusion prevention system configuration. So we've scripted out what the response will be, which could of course reduce the response time even more. So we know that incident response plans are designed then to detect, contain, and eradicate threats. But we need to make sure everyone knows their roles, their responsibility, and also exactly what to do when it actually occurs. Now we can prepare for this with walkthroughs, simulations, tabletop exercises, basically testing drills to make sure people really do know what to do. Because what we can learn from doing that is how we might make changes to the plan to better address any incidents that occur and getting rid of the problem. So for the Security Plus exam, make sure you understand the incident response life cycle, and then of course, when you actually respond to an incident, what the incident response process involves.